It's something you almost never see. More than 50 Catholic priests processing down the central aisle of Canterbury Cathedral, the symbolic heart of the Church of England. A Catholic Mass celebrated at the very cathedral where the seeds of the Reformation were first sown. The occasion is the Feast of the Translation of St. Thomas Becket, commemorating the movement of his relics in 1220 and honouring his martyrdom, the ultimate sacrifice for the faith. Over 800 worshippers packed into the cathedral, the largest Catholic congregation seen here since the Reformation. And the Mass was presided over by the Apostolic Nuncio to Great Britain, representing Pope Leo XIV.
I would like to express this emblematic place, the Christian closeness of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV.
An incredibly profound way to honour the life of St. Thomas Becket, who was killed right here centuries ago. 850 years ago, Thomas Becket was murdered inside this very cathedral. His death for his faith went on to inspire generations. And today here in Canterbury, we remember his life and his legacy. In the 12th century, King Henry II sought to assert royal authority over the Catholic Church in England. But Thomas Becket, the Catholic Archbishop of Canterbury and loyal to Rome, refused to submit. And so in 1170, 4 knights, acting on the king's orders, murdered Becket at the altar of Canterbury Cathedral. His death over 350 years before Henry VIII's break with Rome made him one of the medieval church's most revered martyrs. The city of Canterbury, with its winding lanes and cobblestone streets, still bears witness to this Catholic past. And this year, pilgrims have been retracing those spiritual roots, starting their morning with the Rosary and adoration at St. Thomas of Canterbury's Catholic Church, just a short walk from the cathedral. Elizabeth Forrester has organised this entire pilgrimage and special Mass and explains why this tradition remains so meaningful.
Canterbury itself was, in its heyday, was the 3rd most significant site of pilgrimage in all of Christendom. After Jerusalem, Rome, came Canterbury.
Wow.
And I think it's really significant and important to invigorate and really let people know or remind people of the heritage that there is here.
That Catholic heritage runs deep, and across town at St. Dunstan's Church, another chapter of England's Catholic story is remembered, the resting place of St. Thomas More's Head, executed by Henry VIII in 1535 for refusing to accept the king's supremacy over the church.
We are ministers of the gospel. Let us not think that that can be done without a price.
It's fantastic. See how they plant.
Among those paying their respects to these martyrs was Lord Christopher Monckton of Brenchley. Why do you think it is that St. Thomas Becket's memory, his legacy, his life is still inspiring people to this very day?
They stood out against overweening state power on behalf of ordinary folk who did not wish to be trampled upon. And they did so with the most astonishing courage and with complete disregard for their own lives. And that willingness to sacrifice their very selves, that is an inspiration to every British Catholic in particular.
Pilgrims also heard a powerful testimony from Dr. Gavin Ashenden.
Thomas Becket himself, one which I would love to give you,
once a prominent Anglican bishop and chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II, Ashenden converted to Catholicism in 2019 after publicly resigning from the Church of England in protest over its direction.
Every church has an altar or a stage, and it's either a sacrifice or it's a show. It's either the Mass or it's entertainment. But the difficulty with being an Anglican was it's essentially a political idea. It was always a political idea from the very beginning. It was a political idea that developed a certain theological language, but ultimately the theological language was driven by the politics. So in that sense, its foundations were very shaky.
As the time for Mass approached, crowds gathered outside the great cathedral doors, waiting to step inside a building originally built for the Catholic liturgy, a cathedral whose very stones were laid for this purpose.
Well, I mean, it's a fantastic occasion to be able to celebrate the Roman Catholic Mass here in this magnificent cathedral, the heart cathedral of the Anglican denomination. It's a great occasion.
I just want to be part of this solemn celebration and experience the choir and everything in the church.
It's like you're coming to a place here, which many pilgrims did, where there are miracles, where there is a special sense and effectiveness of God.
Among the many who travelled to honour St. Thomas Becket's witness was Father Thomas Kennedy from Alexandria, Louisiana. Now, Father, you didn't come all the way from the US across the pond just to be here today?
I absolutely did. My first time I came here, I was about 20 years old. I was a pilgrim here by myself. I just came to check it out. I was Anglican at the time, or Episcopalian. But over time, I began to encounter Thomas Becket in so many ways everywhere. And it began to make me realize that sometimes God chooses a saint for us, and we don't choose them necessarily. And so as I began my journey to Catholicism and learned about the communion of the saints, it just became very apparent that Thomas Becket was supposed to be my patron saint.
With the church overflowing, the sound of the organ rang out. And after Holy Communion, and the blessing with the finger bone relic of Thomas Becket, the voices of the choir fill the air. Saint Thomas Becket was not the first to die for the Catholic faith in England, and he would not be the last. But 850 years after his martyrdom, despite the Reformation, despite the centuries of division, Catholics gathered here once again to mark his life and sacrifice, and to celebrate the Holy Mass in a very special way. At Canterbury Cathedral in the United Kingdom, Colm Flynn for EWTN News In Depth.